Hello to you all. I'm currently waiting for my guest. Instagram Live is being especially fun at the moment. And I'll see if we have Bez now. So let's see if I can actually get you in here, Bez. Hello, Bez.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Man alive, Instagram Live is very fun to try to use.
Well,
So, Bez, you're...
work it out. So it's basically you start it, and then I go there, and then I press the button to request to join, and then you accept, and then it works.
Well, that'd be great. But last time I did this, this is only my second time I've ever interviewed somebody on Instagram Live. Last time I did it, there's this little practice area you can kind of sit in, like a little green room, and you can just talk away. And I can invite you in. But for some reason, Instagram Live did not want to find you in any form or shape or form. So, but you're here now, so that's the main thing.
It is like I don't have any account settings. I like to be found. I mean, here I am. I mean, yeah.
I mean, but Bez, you can't miss you. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you should be the most findable person out there. But obviously, Instagram Live is just not being very live this evening. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. This is Die Chatting with Stuff by Bez. And there's a few things. Now, Bez, you're going in this completely cold because we've not been able to talk before this. So yeah, this should be a fun little interview over the next 4 hours.
I have some props. So I've got bits of paper. This is Ben from Aircon as a creature. This is Mark from Aircon as a creature. And I've got some creatures that some of which are totally different. I do have some turnips, but you might have some turnips yourself. Well, pictures of turnips.
I
don't have any turnips in the house. At least sad to say.
Yeah, I don't have any turnips either. It's the one root vegetable I don't think I keep to hand. More's the pity. So I've got like some notes here about what we're going to do this evening, and I'm going to hide them so it's a complete surprise to everybody. So the first thing we're going to do here, I mean, if you're watching this and you don't know who Bez is, then I mean, I don't get that. But anyway, so
there's lots of people who don't know who I am. I mean, let's not assume everyone knows who I am.
Yes, well, I assume too much. So this first section is called All About Me, Not Me, You. So Bez, could you please tell me and everyone else out there who you are and what you do?
Oh my gosh, well, I am Bez and I love board games. I think my first memory is of a ZX Spectrum loading screen. And so I'm going to move the camera a wee bit further away, so when I make this noise, you know, when it goes, and then it carries on for about 10 minutes. And then at the end, if you're lucky, then you get a game at the end. If you're not lucky, then it has a crash or something, and then you need to do the whole thing again.
I mean, Bez, it might not look like I'm young enough to know what a ZX Spectrum is, but I had a ZX Spectrum, and yes, I concur. It was like the sounds of a 90s modem times like a million.
100%. And I am old enough that I feel like the generation that grew up with the internet, my siblings had a ZX Spectrum, so I was barely old enough to walk, literally. And I have this memory of them inserting this cuboid objects into this other cuboid objects, and I knew what a TV was. I knew that you pressed the button and then there were people and stuff on it, but they weren't real. I understood that much. But then my siblings were interacting with the screen. It was like they were magic, they were wizards. It was, how was this happening? Not so, they were moving a little cursor around, and afterwards it was, okay, this was a drawing package. It was hardly the most exciting thing. But then from then I played Arkanoid and Prince of Persia, Lode Runner, very basic games that these days you could run them on your phone and they probably wouldn't keep you engrossed that long. But back then they kept you going for hours and hours, and you could lose days to Prince of Persia back when it was two-dimensional and the graphics weren't, I mean, they were revolutionary at the time, but they weren't anything by today's standards. How times have changed.
Indeed.
But yes, sorry. I was meant to answer who I am, not just reminisce about old video games. I love games. I wanted to be a video game designer. I thought, oh, I'm going to make games. One day I will be in charge of Hudson Soft and make Bomberman exactly like I want it to be. I knew that was unrealistic, but then I drew maps of 2D levels, like how I thought they should go. I was told, oh, if you want to be a video game designer, try making a card game with traditional decks of cards. I tried my hand. My first one was really rubbish. My second and third were kind of rubbish, but they're up on Board Game Geek. I think you can just about work out the rules from the Board Game Geek description. And then it was when I was when I found Board Game Geek, I discovered so many games. Lost Cities was the first modern board game that I played, but also boardspace.net with Hive and everything. I played it 45 times online, I want to say, before I actually bought it when I finally went to UK Games Expo 2011. And that was the kind of time that I was like, wow, I can take all these technologies, because trading, die rolling, that's not just roll and move. All these things, we don't think of them as technology, but 100%, all these mechanisms that we've managed to create, deck construction. Thank you, Donald X. Vaccarino. You did a great job. And thank you, Richard Garfield, for CCGs. All of these are technologies in their own rights, if you know what I mean. And I think I was just inspired to realize, wow, games can be so much more than I actually gave them credit for. So yes, I love games. I love dancing. I love salsa. I love tasting new foods sometimes. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. And sometimes I like walking around and seeing the sunset and from the top of a hill. That's a very nice thing to do. But generally, and occasionally I walk and see the ducks. And I like drawing. And I'm very privileged that in 2014, I did my first Kickstarter. It was relatively successful, 173 backers, I want to say. And I remember that number because it's very meaningful to me. Like, most of them came on that final day and was, yeah, we managed to kickstart in a bind, which became a big thing thanks to Jigamic making it into Yogi, where it can be now. And I'm just feel massively privileged to now, since, well, I did some development for Alley Cat for a while. I've signed up a game to Surprise Star Games. That's a 2-player game. It used to be called, and this is not the title anymore, but it used to be called, Yo Dog, I heard you like moving gnomes, so move a gnome to move a gnome to move a gnome to maybe remove a tile. And it's about moving a gnome, and then but now there's an actual theme. It's not just moving gnomes, but it's going to possibly be called Wheel of Death, where you are. But then I've also signed up Seize the Power, which is a game all about negotiation, and that's a really hardcore game compared to my normal games, which are just for fun, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I love to make people laugh. I love to have people enjoying themselves. But Seize the Power, it's a game wherein it's about subjugation of power. You have more tentacles, you have more eyes, you have eye stalks, therefore you deserve more money. Because look at that lowly being with only 2 arms and 2 eyes and no eye stalk. They don't deserve to go to school. But maybe if they pay you a little bit of money, you will overlook the rule, because all the players are enforcing the rules of the game, and that's the key thing. So it's all about corruption and all about, yeah, it's a very mean game. And I played it with Hadi of Helvetic, who said, oh, this game feels horrible. This is exactly what a game about discrimination should feel like. Well done. And that was, so I'm working with, I actually just had a day-long meeting with Rose and Luke from Inside the Box and are doing a lot of playtesting with it. I'm really excited to see how it progresses in the next few months, and then middle of the year we're going to lock it down. That's maybe a bit, but also I'm very privileged that, yeah, I am able to do Bezzy bargain bags, which is my new thing. And so that's printing 50 copies, printing 100 copies, because I know I'll probably be able to sell out of that. and I'm able to make something ridiculous like my next game, a game about drawing creatures, complimenting the drawings, then complimenting the compliments. It's questionable whether it even deserves to be on Board Game Geek, but it is there. I managed to get it on, and thank you for allowing it up. And there is a lose condition. If you deflect or reject a compliment, you lose. And if everyone wins, you all super win. So it's kind of a cooperative game, but at the same time, there's a sense of competition because not everyone's compliment gets complimented. So if your compliment gets complimented, you feel good about that, even though that's not, it doesn't say technically you get a point or anything, but you do feel good. Hey, that person chose to compliment my compliment, not Alice's over here. It was mine. Hey. But yeah, that's me.
That sounds great.
Trying to push what games are in a sense. And also just make things that makes people smile as well.
I guess like, you know, you can ask the question, what actually makes a game a game? And I mean, I guess I'm asking that question to you now, Bez, because why not? You're here, I can ask you that question. And I always feel like you do push the boundaries of exactly what someone could classify as a game. Like the one you just mentioned about drawing pictures and then complimenting those pictures and how they're drawn and then complimenting the compliments. I mean, it sounds like something you would have got out of a Whose Line Is It Anyway kind of episode from the really, really bizarre kind of interesting scenario. So how would you define a game? What makes a game a game?
Let's see if I can remember this, because I've been pondering this for quite a while. And I think I decided that there were three things, but then eventually I thought of a fourth thing. So I think you need to have rules. So you need to have rules that you agree to, that not just rules that are the laws of physics or the laws of the government, but actually, okay, in this game we are going to have three phases and you take your turn, it's like arbitrary rules that the only reason we're following these things is because we agree that they matter. Do you know what I mean? The second thing is you need to have a freedom to quit. So it can't be something you're forced into. A game has to be a choice. It has to be something that you choose to do. Maybe that's because you think it will give you pleasure. Maybe it's because you think you'll get like a film documentary. Maybe you think you'll be a better person at the end of it. But it's something that you choose to do. And I think it's important that within a game, if half the people aren't enjoying it anymore, you do have the option to quit. There is a level of agency, because if I just say, okay, the rules of this game are sit down and like there's going to be things playing in front of a screen in front of you, and then after 2 hours you get up and you walk out of the cinema. That doesn't quite feel like a game. That's not. So I feel like there has to be some level of agency, like some level of interaction. And I do personally feel like, yes, for me, Netflix interactive stuff is a game. I would personally call Bandersnatch a game. I would personally call what's the Cat Burglar, the new one that they've got. Have you seen this?
Oh, no.
It's like, it's really smart, but I would personally call those things a game. So that for me is it. But then the fourth thing, which I'm struggling to remember now, I kind of realized the other day and I was like, oh, why have I not thought of this? And now it's gone again. But definitely agency, rules, and the freedom to quit. It has to be that opt-in, opt-out nature. But beyond that, I think that, yes, RPGs, it's about you've chosen to do these things, and those three things actually, the acceptance of rules and the conscious accepting of the rules. Because in a way, if we were to say, okay, I am going to walk into the cinema and then I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to not make any noise, and then I'm going to walk out for 2 hours, by virtue of you saying I'm not going to make any noise, maybe that's made it, I'm not sure that's enough agency to make it into a game, but I feel it's more game-like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. You didn't mention fun at all in those things, but I guess you're right. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
I feel like look at Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. Look at some of the war games. People don't play war games for fun. People play war games for understanding what went on, for simulation, for
kind of. The one that springs to mind. The one that springs to mind there is this War of Mine, which is which like the actual gameplay of that. I really enjoy. It's so neat, and from the computer game as well. It's just like, but it's also such a harrowing experience, and like. I've got the board game. I backed it when it came on Kickstarter to begin with, and I've played that like twice because I just like I'm the kind of person that when you have these really horrible decisions in the books to say, oh well, you know, you've gone into like this apartment building and you found like a mother and her two children. The mother's asleep on the sofa and the children are playing in the bedroom, and there's all this food there. And you're like, oh, you know, do you want to take that or do you not want to take that? And I like whenever I play a computer game or anything, I always go for the kind of honest path, and I kind of have the laws of society kind of drilled into me. So I'm like, well, no, that's not the right thing to do. And of course I lose the game because I'm doing what I think is right in this situation. So yeah, I guess you're right in that regards. Like it doesn't have to be.
If we say that games have to be fun, that's not. Games are a medium. Games aren't a genre. And I think that films don't have to be fun. Like, you don't watch Schindler's List and say, this is fun. I mean, that would be a really weird response to that. I would watch, I'm trying to, The Corporation. I don't know if you've seen this documentary. It's a really good documentary. It's all about how corporations can be compared to a terrible individual. And then you'd see that and you're hoping to be edified, to be educated. But I see lots of people, and so hello everyone who's joining in, thank you very much. And I see Tri-Wing Games has a wee comment there.
I wonder if gaming should have a desired experience so it can be fun, understanding, challenge, etc.
I think that's definitely right. And for me, what a good game is a game that tells you broadly what kind of experience you're going to have and then delivers that. But there should be some surprises within that broad framework, but you shouldn't. I feel like the notion of having the rug pulled out from under you, I mean, Brenda Romero's Train, and for those who don't know it, I'm not going to get into it because it is pretty dark, but trigger warnings of the Holocaust. And so if you feel ready, definitely check out Train by Brenda Romero. But that gets into the question of honesty within a game. You need to tell other people, this is what you're going to get. This is a thing to make you think. This is a thing to make you laugh. This is a thing to make you smile. This is a thing to make you empathize with mothers who have lost their children. This is a thing to make you ponder and strategically think as insects battle out over a hexagonal grid, and then deliver on that experience. Sure, there needs to be surprise, there needs to be variation, and yeah, I think that variation, or at least some level of surprise, is a key aspect of a game. Maybe that was the fourth thing that I'm kind of still wrestling with, whether that's something that you need. But you need minor surprises, not to say, hey, you thought you were going to have a laugh. Well, boom. Actually, you're a mother who, sorry, trigger warnings. I'm not going to go into anything, but you know, hey, you're in this horrific situation and now we need to explore that. And now yeah, that's not cool.
Yes, I agree. You want to know up front, like, yeah, what you're getting into. I'm told from my partner today, actually. My partner today was saying to me that I'm a good person to gauge what games to play with people. Out of everyone they know, I'm the best person to kind of read a room and be like, this is what we should play together. Because and I'm also one of those people who never really plays a game to win, which is a good job because I rarely win games. I play it for the experience. And I try to help people win, but not like a kind of little finger, or I tell people how to play their turns, but just kind of like, oh, you can do this. You might not want to do that, but yeah.
There's definitely some skill in that level of curation, and obviously what I was talking about was a hyperbolic example, even though it does exist. But even within the sense of, I think that games should be honest in terms of how long they take.
Yeah.
Games should be honest in terms of how light they are. Games should be honest in terms of, hey, are you really going to enjoy playing this many times? Because some games, you play them once and you know that on the box. It's an escape room thing, it's a legacy thing, whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. Some games, they aspire to be something you play hundreds of times, and they are. And brilliant. Good on, like, Hive, for example, or I like to believe that people are still enjoying Yogi, after hundreds of plays. I know I am. And then, but then you've got a few things where you play it and then maybe after 10 times it gets a bit tired, but that was actually quite valuable. Like, that was still enjoyable. And so does that mean that it's a bad game? Well, only if it's advertised itself, only if the expectation was that you play it hundreds of times. And so maybe, again, this is a really weak sauce thing, but a good game, it's all contextual. It's all about setting the expectations and then matching them.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because like any form of media is, I think it depends on where you were in your life when you picked that media up in the first place. I say media. I was speaking to a friend the other day about old films, and that they watched a film which they loved as a kid recently. They're like, that was a terrible film, and like, why did we like that as a kid? And I said to them, oh, it's because who we were back then. It was Lawnmower Man. That was it. Lawnmower Man, which hasn't aged very well. When that came out, it was like the 90s, and everyone's like, my God, cyberspace is a thing. But like, you watch that today, it's not a great movie. But I think the same with kind of like board games. It's all about the experience for me. Like, when it comes down to like campaign games versus legacy games, I'm all for legacy games, because I kind of feel like, I've got an Xbox. I'll buy a game for like 40, 50 pounds on there. I'll play it once, but I'll have an experience out of that which I enjoyed. But there's a kind of argument in the board game community that I'm aware of, where people are quite anti-legacy games, because they're like, well, why would I spend £60 on something which I'm only going to play 12 times? What are your views on legacy games, Vez?
Lots of people who make these sorts of arguments, lots of people who are anti-legacy games, anti-one-time play puzzle events, anti-app-driven games, I think they are scared that the games that they like are going to stop being made. People who say, oh, I really like physical things. I like having things that I open the box and I know I can keep playing over and over. And hey, maybe for you, a legacy game isn't right. Maybe for you, a puzzle type game isn't right. But there will still be many people making those games, I promise you. People aren't going to stop making the kinds of board games you know. There will be people who are exploring new grounds, but I promise you, out of the many thousands of games that are being released every single year, there will be enough for you, and hopefully there will be even enough for new experiences, and we will continue to broaden the experiences that we are able to get.
I agree. And Trywin Games is chipping in. Gaming can definitely provide meaningful memories too. Being the type of person who helps support a group of gamers helps to provide a lovely memory and experience for them. I'd agree, unless you're playing Risk Legacy and you nuke Australia, and then that's a different story. But yes, I agree with you. It's all about like having a shared experience, enjoying that. And like you're right, Bez. There's a lot of people who are quite anti like apps in games, because they're like, well, in 20 years time they're not going to support the app anymore. But will you really be playing that game in 20 years time? I mean, I'm speaking from a guy who has like over 300 board games, and I play some of them more than once. So yeah, like I
you hope to be able to, and it's a really weird expectation that we've set ourselves up for, in a sense, because I went up to my parents' place and then I saw my SNES, and I was like, oh, if I plug in this, I've got a CRT TV, a cathode ray tube, which is actually better for the old consoles because the blurriness, it actually makes them look slightly better. If you've got the sharp edges, it's not quite as nice. But anyway, that aside, I didn't know if I wanted to go through the hassle of plugging it in. I wouldn't know if it worked for sure. Like it probably would, but then I'd have the hassle of checking it out. But with a board game, sure, you have to learn the rules again, but the cards themselves, they're not likely to all corrode. I can still take a deck of cards that have been lying there for 20 years, for 60 years, and take something and then play it. And there is something magical about that, where you can get a book from the 1920s or even the 1800s. Is that not amazing that we have all these books and we kind of take it for granted? Wow, there's this book and it's probably really outdated, but you can get this lovely sense of it's passed through so many hands. I'm able to read stories that these people read, maybe read stories that I read as a small child. You can open it again as an old person. Whereas, yeah, I think I would love to see board games get into a similar space where they become heirlooms in a sense, because I'm not saying let's make board games that last longer, let's make board games out of plastic. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that, hey, cards themselves do already last a long time. As long as you leave them on a shelf, you don't put them into the dirt, they're not going to compost. Like, sure, if you put them out in the rain in a compost heap, I'm sure they would eventually, after a year, start to degrade quite a bit. But if they're on your shelf, you can take them out. And I've seen a Tintin deck of cards that was so many decades old and had so much play that you could tell the edges of the cards had really been almost reshaped, shall we say, just by the friction of the hands over the decades. And that's an amazing thing to see. I would love to see more people being like, yeah, these games are lovely, cherished memories, which is exactly what I think Trywin and yourself are talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I have a bunch of questions here, like I say, and you've already covered up some. So I'm going to give you completely off the cuff here. You've got a Kickstarter coming up soon of a game that I haven't for a while, which is honestly fantastic. We had a great time with it. And what I tend to do at this point, in the second ever only one of these things I've done, is do a 3-minute pitch for your game. I imagine you're going to get this done within like under 3 minutes. But yeah. So Bez, whenever you're ready.
I need to put up a timer somewhere.
Oh, I will. I have a clock just over there, which I'm going to watch like this. I did have a watch on me, but it disappeared, and my phone is there. Actually, I could look at my phone clock. Come on, Adam. Oh man, it's been a long day. So, whenever you're ready, Bez, tell us all about your next game.
Okay, a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips or beetroots, or maybe, if the Kickstarter is ready, radishes. All you've got to do is you'll start with a bunch of cards that are face down, and you pick them up one at a time, put them into the palm of your other hand. You've got a bunch of creatures that might have different eyes. They might have one eye, or dropped it from the wrong side. One eye or two eyes, as we've both got up there, or 3 eyes, or no eyes. They might have 2 arms in the mid, 2 tentacles in the middle. They might have 4 arms. They might have 6 wings, and all of these attributes need to be totally different. Might have 1 tail, 2 legs, or 4 chicken legs. And again, all of these things need to be different. So if you ever make a match between 2 consecutive cards, you'll lose. That's it. But you do have vegetable cards. Grab a vegetable card, and it's totally different. Then you grab another creature. You can go vegetable creature, vegetable creature. But if you grab more than 5 portions of veg, you lose. So that's it. 5 is your limit. If you grab less than 5, if you grab less than 6 veg, so 5 or less, you're okay. If you keep, if every card is totally different to the one before it, you're okay, and then you win. But some people win more than others. The person with the most cards is actually wins the most. In other games, they would call them the winner. But yeah, let's go with that word. it's basically a speed game, but it's avoiding matches, which is a little twist. Also, it has one key decision, which is a little twist, because normally I love Jungle Speed, I love Twin It, I love so many games, I love Grabble, which is just about grabbing the things, but it's just about having that one extra decision of when do you grab your vegetables? Do you do a burst in the middle? Do you do a burst at the end? Do you just do it whenever you get stuck? But then you've got to keep more careful track. I've got my own strategy, but I'm not going to tell you because, you know, I've worked at Townsend. I'd like to keep you on your toes. And so that's it. And what's going with the original, I redrew all the cards. So it's 36 unique creatures because it's 4 times 3 times 3, and 4 heads, 3 bodies, 3 bottoms. And then with the sequel, I try to give them a little bit more maybe emotion and personality behind that. I don't know if you'd agree. And with radishes, if this Kickstarter funds and people like it, I'm going to try to make it as tricky as I can without being unfair. So if you, with the radish version, it's still got to be painted. I'm going to start drawing it tonight. So it's going to be more multicolored. So these were some, that was a bit of paper with just colors. These are some explorations of color. So it's not going to look like this. This is just me exploring what it might, but actually won't look like. But yeah, it's going to have headphones. It's going to have them eating. It's going to have crossed arms and crossed legs. It's going to have someone doing a handstand. It's going to have someone scratching their armpit just to confuse you. It's going to have like a boom box with an antenna that looks a bit like an extra eye just to confuse you. And so, yeah, that's it. A game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your insert vegetable here, whether it's turnips for the easy version, beetroots for the medium version, or radishes if you want a challenge.
Amazing. Will you be at Aircon with it? K-Play Games is asking if she can check it out at Aircon.
Yes, Kay, I would love to show it to you at Aircon. I have very few copies of the turnips. I should take it off my shop again, but I think I've got about 5 copies of the turnips, which I expect to sell out possibly on the first day, but I've got 100 copies of the beetroots version still pretty much. I've got, you know, more than 80 copies of the beetroots versions, and I think there's 2 different ones. So there's the red colored one that looks kind of like that. There's some beetroots. Also, there's a black and white one. The idea being that you can mix them together. Also, if you want to color it in yourself, you know, that seems to be something that some people were enjoying with a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some night noises. I want to keep that possibility alive for people. I am really looking forward to Aircon. So at the time of recording, that is in Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 days' time. I'm going to be there. Friday, we're going to be open to the public. We're going to be trading. I'm so excited. Are you going to, and you're going to be at Aircon as well?
Myself?
Wait, you're not?
No. I have a very dry festival season this year. I'm not Aircon. It's a nice reason I'm not Aircon. I've got my kids this weekend coming, so it's always looking. And then the UK Games Expo. It's my partner's sister's wedding over that weekend, so I will not be there. And then the following UK Games Expo is my partner's brother's wedding on the exact same weekend. So, but I should be at Essen this year, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, UK-wise,
I'm hoping to be at Essen, not with my own stand, but I will be at Vegard's stand. And Kay, I look forward to seeing you as well. And yes, I look forward to seeing everyone at Aircon just demoing the stuff, and I'm super excited to see how people engage with everything. It's just my favorite thing in the world to be around people who are enjoying your things and saying, hey, would you like to try the thing? If you don't want to try the thing, that's fine. You know, there's lots of other games to try. If you want to try a 2-hour epic thing about vampires or Vikings, hey, I don't have that game. You should, you know, I don't want to get in the way of you doing your vampire Is there an actual vampire and Viking game? I don't know if there is.
If not, there should be, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've just identified a gap in the market.
Boom, make a note.
Yeah, vampire Viking game. Vampire Viking vanquishing.
Yeah, yeah. I've got to say, what you were saying about being a bit cheeky with some of the drawings you're doing there by having them in different poses, and I've got to say, every single game I have played of the version I have of your upcoming game, I have lost. And that is either because I've just got the same something like the same head 2 hours in a row, or I miscounted my my turnips, and like I'll start the game going in my head going, that's 1 turnip, that's 3 turnips,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to give you a really simple strategy. So like if you don't like strategy tips, then mute this for like 30 seconds. But if you're open to someone giving you a simple strategy tip, I would say like the level 1 strategy, don't grab any vegetables at all until you're getting towards the end and there's about 10 creatures left on the table, and then just go 1 turnip, 1 creature, 2 turnips, creature, 3 turnips, creature, 4 turnips, creature, 5 turnips, creature. And then you rush it at the end, you surprise everyone else, so they're like, oh, what's going on? There's suddenly a lot less stuff than I thought there was. And yeah, it can just be a nice way to do it all at the one time. And then you know you've done your 5.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Well, when are you planning on launching this? It's very soon, right?
Yes, it is on Tuesday. I want to say, what's the dates? 13th, something like that. I'm trying to open my laptop without using my other hand.
The weekend's the 12th, I think. Sally's the 12th, maybe. So maybe the 15th. We've got several people watching, so if you can tell me what the date on Tuesday is.
It's Tuesday the 15th. It will be going live.
Huzzah! Excellent. Well, I will be looking forward to seeing that and promoting it as much as I possibly can. So
I do want to say, yes, if you do feel like you're going to still be confused by saying, basically, can you tell if these 2 creatures are totally different? Yes, they are, because the head's totally different, the body's totally different, and the legs are totally different. Would you be confused by these 2?
Yeah, no, I can say the body's the same there.
Yeah, but that's the thing. In a moment, you might get confused. And so if you think that that's enough level of confusion for you, you might want to stick with the turnips or the beetroots. But if you feel like you are the kind of person who loves a game, like I love, and maybe I should have brought out the radishes like way in the future once people already knew the turnips and beetroots, but it's because I've played it hundreds of times myself, and I've got to the point where like, yeah, I'm too good at this. I messed up like literally once this year out of hundreds of games that I played with it, and I want to mess up more often. I want to have a bit of challenge. I want to be like...
Yeah, I think you're right in doing that, to be fair. Like I said, I've never won a game of this, but I've never not enjoyed playing it.
It's difficult for me to tell because I am the artist. Obviously, it's going to be easier for me.
Yes, that's very true, because you've drawn it, so you've got a better, eye for detail in that regards. So I come to the part now where I'm going to ask the hard question, which last time was we were doing about space game, and I asked if aliens existed. And there's one hard question I always want to ask, but it's so morbid and depressing. So instead of that, because I'm gonna save that until, I don't know, until some really horrible point in my life, maybe.
Going to become a dark channel when you kind of have your twilight tears.
That's it. I mean, I'm not far off it, to be fair, but the question I have for you is, who would play you in a movie of your life? And what genre film would it be?
So You know Japanese sports manga?
Okay.
I think it would be like that. It's like a sports manga, but instead of it being about sports, like now they've got other things which are about Go or are about stand-up comedy. There's one. I want to see one where like the person's just designing games and then they become better and then they're learning about, you know, to get rid of their ego a little bit, and the journey of game design turns them into a slightly better person, because I do think that, I'm not going to say I'm definitely a better person, but it's definitely helped me read people marginally better than I used to be able to do. It's helped me divorce myself from my creations. It's helped me accept that not everyone is going to like everything, and you become a better person, and as the years go on, I have become a better designer. So it's going to be a kind of heartwarming, I would call it a comedy, life affirming thing. And who would play it? For some reason, the name Julia Roberts came into my head and I can't get rid of that. So I'm going to say that.
Perfect. Wow. I mean, I'll say I definitely watch that. That sounds pretty cool. And would it actually be manga, like an anime, or would it be like kind
It
of?
would just be kind of have. I was just using that as an example, but maybe
Yeah.
it would have like some weird, hyper dramatic moments, like, "Ooh, you thought you were done, but this is not even my final form. I can make another game." Like Brett Gilbert coming and saying, "You thought my criticisms were done, but this is not even my final
Yeah.
criticism."
That sounds perfect. Amazing. Great. Well, so my next question is, it's a bit of a crappy one to be fair, but if Bez, we happen to be, let's say we were on the same plane to Essen, right? And something happened and the plane crashed on a desert island, and you happen to have brought along one game that we could play on a desert island. What game would you hope that would be on that desert island that we could play until we were rescued or we turned to cannibalism?
I'm going to cheat slightly and I'm going to say I hope that it would be the Eldeck. So where there's obviously more than one game that you can play with it, because these kinds of questions, it's what are you going to do with that game? Because a game is the rules plus the components, really. And hey, if you're in a desert island, we could draw things in the sand, we could makeshift things, we could play Go, we could probably find enough stones and put them around. But if we've got to of the Eldeck, I think, you know, there's a lot of word games, and I think we could have a good amount of fun, and maybe some of the creative games. I think it would be really nice playing some games of Fable. I think Fable would probably be one of the first games I'd be like, yeah, let's try this. It's gentle, it's relaxing, and it's not competitive at all. So I think that would be a nice way to recover from the horrific plane crash that had just occurred.
Yeah, all those poor people who the only ones to survive. Okay, good choice. But you're right in the regards of thinking about components and stuff. Because I always think Twister would be a great one because you know you can use them as a shelter, and when it turns to cannibalism, you use the spinner, make it fun. So the next question is.
Wow, it's dark.
The next question is: do you D&D? And by D&D, I obviously refer to Dungeons and Dragons, but role playing is such a kind of integral part of, I don't know, like what I kind of see as kind of board game culture in a way. I know board games and role playing games are very different kind of Celtic fish, but like, so yeah, I'm just wondering, do you play role playing games? If you do, what role playing games do you play? Are you like just a strict particular one? And do you enjoy them? I mean, obviously, if you don't play them, it might be the last question very easy. But so, do you D&D?
And conversely, if I do play them, then presumably I do enjoy them. I mean,
Well, maybe you hate yourself, and that's why you play them.
I have played Dungeons and Dragons itself, but 3.5 was the last one I played. 4th edition was out at the time, but sure, high five. I've also played a bit of, I'd say, Rollmaster, Call of Cthulhu, a few more indie things. But I think for me, my favourite role-playing experience is Nordic LARPing. So for those who don't know, LARPing, live-action role-playing, you've got your buffer LARP, where you're hitting people with big things. You've got your chamber LARP, like Vampire the Masquerade, where you're standing around and you're pretending that your vampires pretending to be humans, which is an interesting, or humans pretending you're vampires pretending you're humans. Anyway, so the Nordic LARPs tend to be a more nuanced affair. So it might be something where you're trying to tap into more subtle emotions and potentially even delve into emotions of grief and loss. And I have played Nordic LARPs which are about bereavement, which are about imprisonment, which are about being a translator for a superpower who comes in and invades your people, and then the superpower goes away, and then despite their promises, they leave you where you were, and now everyone's like, well, you turned against us and now you've got violence against you. Obviously, a very clear allusion to US, and translators that they employed from the local citizenship. But I think that Nordic LARP definitely allows me to experience lives outside of my own. It feels like I've almost lived extra, and sometimes they are just silly things. Sometimes there are things that we wonder, hey, at what point are robots human? And kind of having that little thought process. I'm actually starting to work on something which I'm hoping to get the first script done between finishing this Kickstarter basically for the final week of the month. So I'll go to Aircon, then I'll run a Kickstarter for 9 days, and then for the final week of the month, because I like to be busy it seems, I'm going to write the first draft of a LARP, which is called Dungeons and Therapy. In my LARP, it's about realizing that black isn't always black, white isn't always white, and maybe those minotaurs that you killed, think of their children, think of, the bereavements, and think of, why are you trying to steal all this gold? Are you kleptomaniacs? What's going on? Maybe that townkeeper who sent you off on this mission, maybe they weren't as pure and noble as you thought they were, because we take a lot of these things for granted. And I think that that's the thing. Like, when in all seriousness, I don't think there's anything wrong with simplifying reality. I love a good cartoon. I love a children's TV show, and sometimes a comedy, okay, even a rom-com, they're going to get together. Of course, it's a gross oversimplification, but we do have to acknowledge that reality is far more nuanced, probably more problematic, and I think it's interesting to just explore these differences between the tropes and the reality of how it would be if that was in real life.
That sounds fantastic, Bez. And it also sounds exactly how whenever I've played Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu, I often, because I tend to overanalyze stuff anyway, I often in character will be like, wait, what? Why are we doing this? Like, if in a Call of Cthulhu game, as soon as you see something that looks like, a cosmic horror from out of this world, you're just like, well, what? My character wouldn't just stand around at this point. Get the hell out. But that sounds really funny, and like it'd be a really interesting experience and a good kind of thing to open up a dialogue about. Exactly, why are you going in this dungeon in the first place?
Yeah, and if people want to check it out, I'm hoping to have it ready for. I got accepted, even though there is no script written yet, and for an event called The Smoke, which I'm super excited about, because there's an annual thing. Obviously, it hasn't run for a year. Like 2021 was a problematic year. 2020, it was in January, so that was fine. There wasn't a pandemic at that point. But 2021, okay, January events are off. This year, 2022, January, not so good with events, but we'll delay it by a few months. And so this summer, the smoke is coming back to London. There's LARPs, and there will be stuff by much more accomplished and seasoned LARP writers who come internationally, but they also have these kinds of this culture of trying to encourage first-time writers. Like myself, I've never really done LARP writing or role-playing game writing, but I've really enjoyed them. And obviously I have an understanding of what it means to design a game, even though it's very different from making a board game, as we've established. But there is definitely some connections, and I'm really excited to have that first draft, do a play test, see how people react to it, probably change a few things, and then iterate and get it ready for the festival. Fingers crossed.
Everything crossed. Like, not double cross, because that uncross is one of them. But yes, a single cross will be there, because that would be yeah. That sounds great, and yeah, I'm really excited for you for that. That sounds like it'd be a really fun event. I will probably be talking to you about that in the near future, because yeah, sounds great. I will continue with my questions now, and there's only 2 left, so I'll let you in, Bez. The penultimate question here is, you can ask me one thing. So, you can ask me something. And it could be anything.
Oh, I mean, what do you think is the purpose of life? What gives you, and obviously, like, I'm not asking you to find my purpose, but what is your purpose, Adam?
I think, oh man, we're getting existential now. That's always interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's very difficult. I think on a very kind of a very natural level. I mean, I'm a father, so I kind of feel like, I know that when I had my first child, I kind of had this. I wrote a short which you can find on YouTube about my child coming from the future to kill me because, well, there's no reason for me to live anymore because I've already done what I needed to do. It was less dark, the actual script, the sketch we did do, because it was just about a guy who's going to eat a sandwich, and his son from the future came and said, don't eat the sandwich because something really horrible will happen. So he doesn't eat the sandwich, and then his son comes back and says, actually, you need to eat the sandwich. And then by the end of it, there's about 8 people in the room telling him to either eat the sandwich or not eat the butterfly effect. That's on YouTube, you can find it. It's quite called The Sandwich. So yeah, the purpose of life is very tricky. I think I try to live by to enjoy myself without hurting anybody. And I think that's as much as, I mean, I've hurt people in the past. I will probably hurt people in the future. But I hope that I'm putting out more positive things in the world than I am doing harm. I think
that's a really good thing to aspire to. I mean, if we can aim to at least be net good, like, all of us are going to be jerks sometimes. Like, and also, if you wear garish clothes, there's going to be some people who say, oh, I love the red that you're wearing. And other people are like, oh, no, like, that's a bit hyperbolic. But you know what? Like, the clothes that you wear, like being a trans woman, in all seriousness, like, there's going to be people who are innately offended at a deep emotional level by that, just by the nature of me going somewhere and dancing or whatever. But then there's going to be other people who enjoy my company, and but I think that we can't just say, okay, those people are bigots, they don't matter. I guess you can, in a sense, but
yeah, you don't know. The thing is, you don't know what's going on with them. I had a very interesting Wetherspoons breakfast the other day where one of the guys we were with, he's a vegan, and he'd asked for a vegan breakfast. He got everything, but there was like some butter on the plate, and he said to the guy, the server, "Oh, have you got any like non-dairy butter?" And I kid you not, the server went, "Suppose so," and kind of walked off. And like we were like, "That's really rude." But at the same time, the guy who's the vegan said, you know what's going on in his life though. Like, he could have had the worst day ever. No, there's no reason for any of us to be like, annoyed at that guy. But he was rude, but at the same time, yes, good point. But
yeah, you try to forgive people for sure. But what I'm saying is that you can't aim to offend no one, because it's like a game. I mean, I'm not comparing, well, I am comparing. I'm not saying they're exactly the same. Humans obviously are not games, for one thing. Humans are sentient. Games, at least as far as I know, they are sentient. But human, for both of them, if you try to be, if you want to be loved, if you want to impart positivity, you are going to find some people who hate something about that. And if you're singing, like, some people will hate that. So if you're singing in the park, some people will hate it. Like, sure, you could say, okay, I'm only going to sing where it's in a concert venue, but then you've got to find somewhere to practice. You've got to find somewhere to do your thing. Some people are going to be annoyed at you singing in your flat. Sure, you can think, okay, I'm going to be reasonable. I'm going to do it within certain hours. I'm going to, but sometimes you do need to belt it out. And I think that it's all about thinking, well, some people are going to be offended, but that's okay, as long as exactly what you said, the net is generally positive. I think that's a really good thing to aspire for.
Yeah.
Same as board games. You don't want to have everyone be blasé and not caring. You want to have some people really love it, even if that means that a few people are turned off.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. I mean, it's always lovely to have an existential thought now and again.
You're very welcome.
I always try to, like, you know, drown all of that stuff out, or I won't sleep. So we're on to my last question now. That last question is, now I was on your show, your 10 o'clock show, not too long ago, and one thing
was, yeah, that was a weird one. That was episode 500, I believe, and you were on after I'd been awake for almost one day.
Yeah, it was very impressive. I caught you snoozing at one point on there, just resting your eyes. But like, yeah, like it was fantastic. I really enjoyed being on it. I look forward to joining you again sometime. So on there, one of the things that I discussed with you, and I know you spoke to a lot of people, and you've been to sleep since, so you might have forgotten. But one of the things I kind of said was, I don't really believe there are bad games out there. Just games which aren't really for particular people. And I think you were like, actually, I think there are bad games. But my question to you here is, this is a section which I did last time, and I'll always do, because I think it's quite an interesting topic. So this is, sorry?
I'm not going to name the bad games. I'm not going to get to that. I don't choose to commit them to my memory. That's not something.
This will kind of hamper the question here, really, because I'm not asking you what's the worst game you've ever played here. This is a section I like to call Worst Game Made Good. So what I'd like you to do is take a second to have a think of a game that you don't particularly enjoy, that other people might enjoy, but you personally, you were a bit cold with it. And why you didn't really enjoy that, but what you could do to make that a better game, if anything. Once again, this is you've not had any prep for this, so I'm just completely throwing this at you.
Okay, my mind is going to Monopoly, and I'm not saying, obviously, this is something that it gets often derided in hobbyist gaming circles. It does go on quite long for what it is. I would start everyone off with marginally less money, maybe $750 rather than, I think it's $1,500 by default. Make it so that as you're going round, you need to initiate auctions more often, because currently you generally buy everything. You don't let it go to auctions. And for those who aren't aware, if you don't buy something that you land on it, it has to go for auction. But that doesn't trigger quite enough for my liking. I would do that. Play the game as usual, but when, okay, I'd have to do a bit more thinking, but either like a certain number of rounds around the board, or if the first person gets eliminated, because that's always sad when you get eliminated and there's more hours of play that you are not involved in. I would say at that point, either a certain number of times around the board, or when one person is eliminated, the game ends, person with the most money wins, and obviously are allowed to convert all your properties and hotels and houses back into money for their normal value. That's what I feel like that's the key thing that I would try to do, to have just a certain number of rounds. And they have actually, to their credit, I think if you look at Monopoly Gamer and Monopoly Animal Crossing, it's a slightly different thing. And Rob Davio of Risk Legacy, kind of co-designer of Pandemic Legacy, now working for Restoration Games, started off working in Hasbro. And I think they were the person who started off saying, hey, this is the way we can reskin Monopoly really easily. And it makes sense. They churn out literally hundreds of versions of Monopoly at an alarming rate. And so it's like, boom, Glasgow Monopoly, boom, Birmingham Monopoly. But then you've got, boom, sure, Star Wars Monopoly, boom, Star Wars Episode 4 Monopoly, boom, Star Wars Episode 5 Monopoly, boom, Star Wars The Mandalorian Monopoly, like, just getting super specific, boom, Star Wars Boba Fett Monopoly, and you're going, like, I don't know what's real and what's not at this point. It might even be real, but yeah, they are actually starting to explore things. It's still probably not a game that I would necessarily choose to play, but if we put a time limit on it, yes, sure, absolutely.
You'd give it a go, right? With the right people, I guess. I'm waiting for Monopoly Legacy, where you just tear the board up after the first game, I guess. The interesting thing
in Monopoly, there was a version of Monopoly that they turned into an even longer version.
Oh, is that with a Monopoly within a Monopoly board?
Yes, so you go around the Monopoly board, and then there's an inner Monopoly board, but also there's money. And they say if you ever run out of money, what you do is you tear up your notes, and now they're worth double. Because you tear them into like what? That. And someone calculated how long it would actually take to play Monopoly longest version ever, I think it was called, something like that. And that's still getting into the joke. They know that's why Monopoly is derided, and it's actually the ones where I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to say any more.
Okay. That sounds safe, pretty safe there. So you could bump into the people at conventions. So it's it's safe to leave that. Well, Bez, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this evening, because I've had an absolute blast talking to you, as I always do. You're a lovely person to talk to, and it's always interesting to have existential crises thrown at me when I try and think of the purpose of life. But yeah, so once again, Bez, your Kickstarter is out when? Tuesday the
15th, I believe.
It is the 15th.
It is the 15th. Okay. Yes. Today's the 7th. So in 8 days' time. And so check out Kickstarter.com. Like, if you currently go on, I wish I'd set up a redirect in advance of this. That would have been smart. Like stuffbybez.com/Kickstarter. That would have been good, wouldn't it? If you went to there, and I'm not saying this is going to be all smarty and say, oh, but actually, if you go there, it does redirect. No, that probably redirects you to one of my previous campaigns. And so in theory, you could follow me, like on the Kickstarter, and then it will alert you. But yes, it's going to be a short campaign. It's just going to be 9 days, because the Bezzy bargain bags, remember, it's for a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your radishes. That's the new version. So there were the turnips, then there were the beetroots that had a little bit more emotion behind them, and then there's going to be radishes that are just even trickier without being unfair, hopefully. And so fantastic. The whole notion of Bezzy bargain bags, to let me do things, to let me experiment, lower down the amount of stress so that I can keep making stuff. And if you like the sound of it, then please back it. And it's a Bezzy bargain bag, which means it's just a bunch of cards in a bag. There is no box. it does mean that I don't stress about the artwork, and so I think, yeah, like I was actually looking for the one card that's there it is. Ah, here we go. So this one card, I feel like, hey, if I'd done it perfectly, maybe this would have been slightly higher to fit the proportions of the card slightly better. You know, it's not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but it's only fiver. So like, it's a reminder to be more carefree. I'm not going to use the word lackadaisical. That sounds lazy, but it's more carefree, more energetic, more, it's okay. I don't have to be a perfectionist about everything. And it is going to be super cheap. So if you're within the UK, you can buy it for £5 plus £3 shipping, or buy multiple decks if you want all the different editions. And if you want my Wee Whimsical Creatures, you can get that for an add-on, and so get them all for £5 each plus £3 shipping. Or if you're again within the UK, but maybe you're just wanting to support me, or maybe you just want the game but you don't have the money, or maybe you're abroad, pay £1 and you get a print and play version. So you get all the files. I'm giving you access to the full thing, all 3 versions, radishes, turnips, beetroots, you get them all. The black and white version, the coloured in versions, you get them all, and then you can print it out, and if I ever update it, you'll get access to those files for £1.
That is fantastic value. And I would just quickly shout out about the Wee Whimsical Creatures. Was the only game I bought at the UK Games Expo last year, or whenever it was I was there. Was it last year? God, I can't remember. Whenever it was. Yeah, last year, yeah. The only game I bought at the expo, because it was just sitting down with complete strangers, playing that game was so much fun. So anything, all these little games you've been creating, I've really enjoyed. Yogi's a firm favorite in our household with the kids, and also with my parents, which you know, I just bring that on them. They'll be come around and go, by the way, you're playing Yogi. Oh, okay, well we'll do this and this. But thank you so much for spending the time to talk to me this evening, and I will be giving you a shout out when your Kickstarter is live to go, guys, check this out. They're always very amazing value, because they're just fun, and they're also very cheap for what they are. So 10 points. All right. Well, that kind of
like financial accessibility, because there's definitely been times in my own life when I've been living with the parents, and it's been like, okay, sure, I could buy a full price game, but everything that I buy, I need to do a lot of research into. I need to make sure I get a certain amount of play. And there is a space for silly little things that you think, hey, I might play that loads of times, or I might play it 2 or 3 times, and that's okay. And I think that we want to have those kinds of things in our life. Not every book that we read needs to be Wuthering Heights. Not every film that we watch has to be, I don't know. Sorry,
or The Diary of Anne Frank.
Sure.
Yeah.
The Cuckoo's, that's a good example of a film that's really highly rated, and it's got some weighty topics within it. You know, sometimes, or not even like Studio Ghibli, it doesn't need to be of that level of quality of animation and artistry. Sometimes you can just have a joyous thing that is quickly made, and then it's like, hey, that was fun, and it entertained me for a while, and it didn't pretend to be more than it was, but it left me smiling, and that's valuable, especially in this day and age.
Exactly. So great. Well, thank you everyone who watched this over the course of this. I've certainly had a great time chatting to you guys. This just kind of leads me to say goodbye to everybody. So until next time, guys, please stay safe and keep rolling.